The Citadel Code, the philosophy of the medieval knight and noble. Chapter 6. Defense of the weak, the sacred duty. The knight existed to shield those who could not shield themselves. As lord of the citadel, he protected women, children, widows, orphans, and peasants under his banner. This duty drove fair governance, merciful judgment, and swift rides against raiders. Generosity flowed from his stores in famine. Courtesy refined his conduct toward ladies and common folk alike. Protection was active. He cleared forests of bandits and strengthened village walls. Power served the vulnerable, not personal gain. In this, the knight fulfilled the core mandate of chivalry. The strong existed for the weak within God's ordained order. This sacred duty stood at the heart of chivalric philosophy. While the knight trained relentlessly for war and pledged unyielding loyalty to his lord, his highest calling was not conquest or personal glory, but the active defense of the defenseless. Medieval sources, from the Peace and Truce of God movements to treatises on knighthood, repeatedly emphasized that knights must protect the weak, particularly widows, orphans, women, children, and the poor. The Church played a key role in shaping this ideal, urging warriors to direct their violence outward against threats, rather than inward against the innocent populations they were sworn to safeguard. In the feudal world of the 12th to 15th centuries, society rested on a clear hierarchy. The knight and noble held land and arms in exchange for military service and governance. With that power came solemn responsibility. Peasants tilled the fields, paid rents and labor services, and looked to the citadel for protection during raids or wartime. Widows and orphans, often left without male protectors after battles or plagues, were especially vulnerable to exploitation by the strong. Chivalry explicitly forbade such abuse and commanded the knight to offer succor, aid, justice, and shelter. Daily life inside the citadel made this duty concrete. When a widow petitioned in the great hall, the knight listened and rendered judgment according to custom and canon law, ensuring she retained her dower lands or inheritance. Orphans received guardianship or placement in the household if needed. During harvest failures or after destructive raids, the knight opened granaries from the citadel stores, distributing grain to prevent starvation among the villagers. This generosity was not optional charity, but a recognized obligation of lordship. Failure to provide it risked divine displeasure and loss of honor. Protection extended far beyond charity. It demanded action. The knight organized and led armed patrols to clear nearby forests and roads of bandits who preyed on travelers and peasants. He inspected and repaired village defenses, stockades, ditches, and watchtowers, so that communities could better withstand sudden attacks. When larger threats appeared, such as a marauding band or an invading force practicing the chevauchée, a scorched earth raid designed to terrorize and weaken the enemy by destroying crops and villages, the knight rode out with his retinue to intercept and drive them off. His plate armor and banner served as visible symbols that the strong stood ready to shield the weak. Courtesy formed another vital expression of this duty, especially toward women. Courtly ideals taught the knight to treat ladies with respect and refinement, whether noble or of humbler station. This was not mere etiquette. It reflected the broader principle that the warrior must elevate his conduct to honor the vulnerable. In literature such as the Song of Roland, and in the practical expectations recorded in noble household rules, knights were instructed to show gentleness and graciousness to women while remaining fierce against those who would harm them. Historical figures embodied this ideal. William Marshall, celebrated as the greatest knight that ever lived, rose through tournaments and loyal service, yet consistently demonstrated concern for the welfare of those under his protection. As regent for the young Henry III, he defended the kingdom not only against foreign invasion, but also against internal chaos that would have left the weak exposed. His life illustrated that true chivalry balanced battlefield prowess with responsible governance and protection of the realm's most vulnerable inhabitants. Ramon Lull's Book of the Order of Chivalry, circa 1275, one of the most influential medieval treatises on the subject, stressed that the knight's strength and authority must be tempered with concern for those less able to defend themselves. Lull argued that a knight who used his power to oppress, rather than protect, betrayed the very purpose of his order. The knight was to act as God's instrument on earth, wielding the sword to uphold justice and shield the innocent. In times of siege, this duty intensified. When enemy forces encircled the citadel, the knight faced hard choices. Non-combatants, women, children, the elderly, and the sick, sometimes received safe conduct out of the fortress to conserve supplies for the fighting garrison, but only when feasible. More often, the citadel became a refuge, its thick walls and stores providing shelter for peasants fleeing surrounding villages. The knight coordinated the defense, ensuring that the stronghold held long enough for relief forces to arrive or for the enemy to withdraw. His voice, deep and commanding, rallied defenders while his decisions balanced military necessity with mercy wherever possible. Even in peacetime, the knight's role as protector shaped governance. He adjudicated disputes fairly, so that the strong could not simply seize from the weak. He enforced just rents and labor services, preventing excessive demands that could ruin peasant families. He maintained roads and bridges so that trade and travel remained safe. These mundane responsibilities formed the quiet backbone of chivalric duty, less glamorous than tournament or crusade, yet essential to the ordered society the knight was sworn to uphold. The philosophy recognized human reality. Not every knight lived the ideal perfectly. Warfare remained brutal, and the code sometimes clashed with military necessity. Yet the persistent emphasis across chronicles, manuals, and oaths showed that chivalry aimed to restrain the warrior elite. It taught that raw power without moral direction descended into tyranny. The strong existed for the weak, not out of weakness, but because God had ordained a hierarchical order in which each station carried duties proportional to its privileges. Young squires raised in the citadel absorbed this lesson through example. They watched their lord hear petitions from humble folk, distribute alms, lead patrols against threats, and show measured courtesy. They learned that knighthood demanded more than skill at arms. It required a heart attuned to justice and compassion within the bounds of feudal and Christian duty. When the time came for dubbing, the new knight swore to uphold these principles, including the solemn vow to protect the defenseless. In the stone citadel, with its towers overlooking fields and villages, the knight stood as living guardian. His surcoat, bearing heraldic arms, proclaimed his lineage and vows to all who saw it. His sword, consecrated upon the chapel altar, symbolized the righteous use of force. Every act, whether riding against raiders, judging a land dispute, or opening stores during hardship, reinforced the central truth of his philosophy. Power found its noblest expression in service to those who could not wield it themselves. This sacred duty distinguished the medieval knight from mere mercenary or brigand. It elevated warfare into a vocation and lordship into stewardship. Within God's ordained order, the strong did not prey upon the weak. They shielded them. In fulfilling this mandate, the knight and noble not only preserved earthly society, but also aligned his soul with divine will. The citadel walls might crumble over centuries, yet the ideal they sheltered, that the powerful exist to defend the vulnerable, remained a cornerstone of chivalric philosophy.